Hey guys, Live Sober here. It's a beautiful morning. We got the sunrise coming up over here. Just kind of in my little secret spot here. I think you can see it. Yeah. So just up enjoying the day and thinking about putting together a little some thoughts about starting off getting sober. Maybe a couple of little tips and tricks. It might be a few videos. There's a lot of things to think about, but I'm coming up on 10 years sober from alcohol, but there's lots of different things I've been addicted to: video games, food, nicotine at one point, all kinds of different things. So, work, pickleball, even working out. Probably my current addiction is working out. So, there's good ones and bad ones. And to me, addiction is when you start to do something so much that it's not beneficial to your life. So that could be Netflix, that could be sugar, that could be a whole variety of things. So start off quickly, talking about addiction. And there's kind of, in my mind, and I'm not a psychologist, I'm not trained, so don't sue me for anything I say, but in my mind there's kind of like two things. There's a behavioral addiction, and then there's also a chemical addiction. So let's get the chemical addiction out of the way. So chemical addiction means that your body literally has become dependent on whatever chemicals you're putting into your body. This can happen very quickly with all kinds of different things, and different people have different levels of susceptibility to different things. So your body, alcohol is one for sure. Definitely things like heroin and things like that, things that we think of as addictive, nicotine. But it can also be things like sugar. Your body can get highly addicted to sugar, and also, caffeine. If you ever given up that, you get the headache. And surprisingly, one I found out was hot sauce. So there's actually, I heard about this, there's a tribe somewhere, I think it was in South America, where they eat these super, super hot chilies, and the hospital has to keep them on hand, because if they don't have the chilies, even in the hospital bed, then they actually go through like withdrawal symptoms. So with a chemical addiction, you normally have something called withdrawal if you start taking it. So think about you don't get your normal coffee, you get the headache, right? And sometimes these withdrawal symptoms can be minor. Sometimes they can be very dangerous. So the first thing just to start off with is, especially if you're thinking about quitting alcohol, or other serious drugs, you talk to a health professional. Make sure you're going to do it safe. There's different tools and drugs and resources to help you get the chemical addiction away. Now, the good thing about chemical addiction is typically within a very short period of time, the chemical addiction actually goes away. So I think if you can make it, I think it's like a week without nicotine, technically the chemical addiction is over. Don't quote me on the times. I've looked at these before, but I don't know exactly. It's within a week or so of most things, your body realizes, okay, I'm not getting this, and it will stop. The withdrawal symptoms are going to go way down. But make sure you're doing it safe. Don't just quit cold turkey if you're if an everyday user without consulting a medical professional. So the chemical addiction is something that is pretty easy to get over in a sense, because once you get past a certain time, your body will just know that it's not the chemical addiction. So that gets into what I think is the hardest part, is the actual behavioral addiction that we have. And, I look at addiction in many different ways, but one way is it's how we kind of distract ourselves from the troubles of the world. As some people might call it self-medication. Some people might call it a escape. Instead of facing the realities of the day, jumping into a video game. Instead of facing your feelings, eating a cake. Things like this. If you're happy, you drink. If you're sad, you drink. If you're bored, you drink. And those are ways to kind of avoid the everyday kind of mundaneness and also horrors of life that, happen with whether it's losing a loved one or the fear of losing people or anything else that is keeping you up at night. So we use these different things in a way to kind of cope with the world. And so, I can say that just for me, like for alcohol is like I said, if I was happy, I wanted to drink. If I was sad, I wanted to drink. If I was bored, I wanted to drink. So, what happens if you're sad and you can't drink, right? What happens if you can't sleep and you can't drink? Because that was the tool that helped you kind of get through those things. So I think that's really one big part of the challenge. The other big part of the challenge is when we have addictions, a lot of times we kind of build up our psyche, our ego around those things, and also the relationships that we have. So for me, when I was drinking, I would choose activities, and people knew me as a drinker. People knew me as a party person. People related that to me. I related to myself in that way, that I was a fun, kind of party person, and that was like part of who I thought I was. And so when you take that away, it's kind of like, well, who am I? So there you have this big kind of question that happens. And then two, you start to choose activities. So I used to be on a bowling league. I wasn't that big into into bowling, but it was an opportunity to go drink. You could drink a few pitchers at a bowling league and nobody would bat an eye. I used to watch a lot of sports, especially football. And now, football, the first fantasy football show came on with a beer commercial at 10 a.m. So boom, you could start drinking at 10 a.m. even earlier. And I could drink all the way through, Sunday night football and the ESPN. And so there's a good 14-hour binge right there with commercials telling you the whole time that it's all good and gravy. So, and so, and then your friends, I can readily admit, and I hate to say it, but, if I chose people to be friends who like to drink. And so, and our main activity was drinking. We were hanging out, watching football games, going to the bar, anything, everything had alcohol involved in it. And so that was kind of the friend group going back, even to the fraternity days, and kind of all the way through. I didn't, if I met somebody and they didn't drink, I wouldn't even think to pursue a relationship with them. And this is hard to say. I'm just being truthful as I can, because I knew if they didn't drink, then that would shine a spotlight back on me. And so, I always felt like whenever I was out or whatever, it was my job to get everybody else to drink. So, and I realize now that was like part of me kind of, creating this world that I could exist in. So, when you kind of add up all these things, you have the chemical addiction, and you got the behavioral addiction with kind of not the way we view ourselves, also the way others view us. And then you start to look at, hey, like, I've built a life to kind of be able to do this, right? So, if you're a gambler, like, your friends gamble probably, and, your vacations are around gambling events. So if you were to take that part out, if you're big into video games, all your friends are in the guild. I've been there, where, if I want to quit the video game, all of a sudden it means I'm not just quitting a video game, I'm quitting, years of friendships that have been built up over time, and there's no really way to keep in touch with those people. If you stop drinking, like, are you going to go out to the bar, or what are people going to think, and all that stuff? So, there's kind of the internal and the external And then there's just kind of the habit, right? It's just like, you know, and finally kind of with it is, you know, it does fill up the time. It is a medication in many ways, I think, these addictions that we have, of ways of self-soothing and ways of getting through the day. So if you take that away, how do you get through the day, especially if your friends aren't around? Because, you know, they're the online friends, so you don't really have somebody to reach out to, or, you know, that activity that you thought was fun, like bowling. When you know, bowling while drinking is a lot of fun. Bowling without drinking is maybe not as fun as you remembered. And so kind of your whole world can get turned upside down. And it can be a lot all at once. So, you know, I think one of the things when you're starting out is to really try to shrink the change a little bit, right? They say you know, how do you eat an elephant? You eat it one bite at a time. So, you know, realizing that, you know, you're not having to change the whole world all at once and fix everything all at once, I think is a big part of getting started. But, you know, let's just kind of talk about a few things. So, you know, like I said, the chemical addiction is kind of the easiest part to get over, because if you could just make it a few days without using whatever substance, your body is very quick at, you know, at least dependency wise, you know, moving on. Our body is highly adaptable. What's less adaptable is kind of changing our personality traits and things like that. And so, you know, what happens when you get really sad? What happens when you get really bored? What happens when you have a setback at work or in life? You know, do you go right back to the thing that was helping you out before? So, you know, getting sober from these things doesn't solve your problems. You know, the reason the reason I was drinking, like when I stopped drinking, all the problems that I was avoiding by drinking were still there. So it just allowed me to like view them, you know, with a sober mind, and then hopefully be able to take some time and work on those things and get better, as opposed to kind of digging myself into a deeper and deeper hole. But that's hard. And that's why I think quitting can be hard. So, you know, I'm going to just share a few tips and tricks, things to think about. You know, number one, like I said, shrink the change. So one of the easiest things you can do, and people are so used to this now, it's really great, is do a 30-day challenge, right? Look, we're coming up to October here. We got Sober October coming up. It even rhymes. It's such a perfect excuse when you're out. It shrinks that change for you. You know, 31 days. Okay, I'm going to do 31 days of no Netflix, or 31 days of no masturbating, or 31 days of, you know, no whatever the thing is that isn't serving you right now. And, you know, let's say it's drinking, you know. Hey, your buddy calls you up. Hey, we're going out to the bar. Okay, cool. Like, you can go or not go, but let them know, hey, you know, I'm doing the 31-day challenge, you know, just, you know, doing it with Joe Rogan, or blame it on me, or just, you know, doing it for your health, or just trying something different. But everybody kind of understands that, and you don't have to be like, oh, I stopped drinking forever, or oh, I stopped gambling forever. It's just like, no, I'm doing, you know, 30 days, you know, whatever it is. And, you know, people understand that, and it makes it very simple to kind of have a smoke screen while you're kind of trying out something different. So, you know, I think that's really helpful as a way to start, is just think about doing a challenge. And maybe your challenge is only a week long, you know, what's the transformation that you're looking for? So, you know, you know, maybe all you do is need a little break from it. But, you know, having that smoke screen of being able to tell a friend or something like that, hey, yeah, I'm just doing this challenge right now, so yeah, I'll come out, but I'm not going to drink beer, you know, I'll have waters or Coke or whatever. So that's one thing that I really, really recommend. Second thing is to try not to do too many things all at once. You know, I'm going to stop drinking and start working out and stop eating sugar and stop doing this and stop doing that. and I'm only going to eat vegetables. And, it's just like, whoa, like, you're kind of setting yourself up for, like, if any one little thing doesn't go well, then the whole thing can fall apart. So, choose the one thing that is, like, non-negotiable. So for me, December 31st, when I made that decision, almost 10 years ago, the non-negotiable was drinking. I wasn't going to drink, okay? Now, I hate to admit it, but I started vaping, like, almost the next day. And you might be like, dude, that's, like, worse than drinking. Maybe it is. I don't know. I started eating a lot more sugar because, when you stop drinking, there's a lot of sugar, and so I wasn't getting that. So I would just eat. If I wanted a candy bar, I ate a candy bar. If I wanted to go vape, I vaped. There were, I'm not saying go pick up a lot of bad habits, but I wasn't trying to fix everything all at once. And for me, that was really freeing, because what it allowed me to do was really focus on stopping the one thing that was really messing me up. And I felt like these other things I could get control of a little bit later, which is true. So, I'm not saying, give up drinking and go start heroin or something like that. I'm not saying go start vaping. It was just kind of what happened for me. And I know a lot of people in AA smoke and things like that. I definitely was trying to avoid smoking. Vaping seemed like a little bit of a better option at the time. And, I used it for a little bit to help me take the edge off a little bit and things like that. But the point of the whole thing is, hey, I'm going to cut out Netflix. That doesn't mean you need to also cut out all your sugar and only eat broccoli. You know what I mean? Like, give yourself a little bit of a break here. And, especially if you're cutting out, food, a type of food like alcohol. I mean, that was, probably 1,000 calories a day that, I could go and actually refill and reuse with other stuff. And wasn't going to be too bad for me. So really kind of focus on the one thing and don't worry about everything else. So that's kind of tip number 2, I guess. So we had, again, set a time limit or do a challenge or something like that. So here's another one that was really good for me and might be helpful for you. So when I stopped drinking, I spent a lot of money on drinking. And, we go out to a bar, and then you buy a group of people shots. I mean, holy moly. Then you order the nachos and the pizza and all that stuff. Well, all of a sudden you're not doing that. There's some extra money around, right? So what I did was I kind of took that money that I was saving from that. You could do it. Oh, I'm saving money from cigarettes, or I'm saving money from whatever you're cutting. And I kind of put it into like its own jar that was to be spent on things to help me get over it. So, for example, I bought a kind of an expensive gym membership at a CrossFit gym to try something a little bit different. And I kind of justified it by saying, well, this is, I'm saving money on the drinking and I'm going to put it here. And so there was like a reward to myself. I probably bought like different things for myself that I might not have bought. Like I remember I was playing like some online video games that were kind of helpful. Like I played Clash of Clans. And, I would normally never buy gems or, buy the currency for a game. But I was like, you know what? Like, I could go spend, $5 on a beer or like $1 on this game and have a great time, tonight with this $1 that I put into the game. And it was like such a no-brainer to take those funds that you would spend, kind of working against yourself and use it for things that are going to help you get through that time. So there's a little reward system, kind of going on with that, which I think is helpful. And so, and you can use it to kind of do what is, to me, the next tip is to really, we got to start finding different things to do with our time. Because, if you're doing something like Netflix, let's say you're binging Netflix 3-4 hours a day, that's probably not even binging. I've done more than that for sure. let's say you're drinking, that could be 3 or 4 hours a day of your day. You get home, you start drinking right when you get home at 6, you're drinking to midnight. That's 6 hours that you now have to kind of fill almost every day. Netflix, 3 to 4 hours. Maybe you're into sugar, and so you're always baking or always kind of thinking about, hanging around the kitchen and things like that. So gambling, what are you going to do instead of watching maybe sports, right? It might be a big trigger for you. So now that 4-hour football game or 12 hours of football you're watching on Saturday, what are you going to do with all that time? And to me, it's like the most exciting thing, because like I have time. It's the biggest gift of being sober, is that you have time to do the things that you want to do, and being disciplined and not going down the addiction route gives you time back to decide what you want to do with it. But when you've been, kind of lost in addiction, you don't know what to do with that time. And that's probably why you're going back to it. It's like, oh, I'm bored, I'm going to masturbate, I'm bored, I'm going to watch Netflix. So what do you do when you're bored? Well, the key is to not be bored. So I'll give you a few tips on how to fill up your day a little bit more, so that, it's productive and you feel like, because being sober can be like super boring in some ways. If you're kind of just trying to live like, okay, well, this is good. Let me say this, and then we'll go into that tip. So, one of the things is like, eventually you kind of need to stop living that type of lifestyle that you were living before, right? So, I tried to quit drinking many, many times before this time. And what would happen is I would be like, I could always white knuckle out a few weeks, a month, or whatever. But I would always kind of be doing the same things. I'd still be watching football, and then I'd be watching football without beer, which is like the whole time you're just sitting there like, oh my God, I wish I could have a beer. And then every time a beer commercial comes on, you're like, oh my God, like it's in your face all the time, and everyone else is drinking there. And like, it becomes kind of like a torture in a way, going out with your friends who are drinking, if the whole time you're just sitting there like, oh, I wish I could drink, and I kind of say like, it's like living an alcoholic lifestyle without being an alcoholic, and that's really tough. So, kind of changing up our life patterns is, and it's hard. Like, you got to find what works for you and find things, but let me share some things that help me, and it might help you as you start to think about this. So the first thing for me is, I've kind of said like nothing good happens after 9 o'clock. It's like, at least for me, there's no productivity happening after 9 o'clock. I'm not writing a book. I'm not, painting the house or mowing the lawn, or really anything that's kind of productive. That normally ends up being kind of Netflix and chill time. That'd be a time, for drinking, with eating bad food that I didn't need at the end of the day, and things like that. And if, it could also be the hardest time, because if you're kind of up late at night, just sitting there and your brain's going, and, that can be really hard to think through, right? And so, it's like you could just be laying there in bed like, ugh. So the thing is about that is, the sooner you can get to bed at night, the sooner you made it through the whole day. And every day you get makes it a little bit easier. So how do we make it so that we can be tired at 9 o'clock, 9:30? So instead of being sitting around thinking, I wish I could watch Netflix. Oh, I wish I could, do whatever the thing is. You could go to bed and get ready for another amazing day the next day. So number one thing is to wake up early. So I think you guys know most days I wake up at 4:58. Why 4:58 and not 5? Because 4:58 sounds a lot more badass. I don't know. It works for me. So I'm not saying you got to wake up at 4:58, and I didn't start waking up at 4:58, but I did start waking up earlier. And that was like a big change for me. I always was a night owl. Never thought that I could be a early morning person. And I wouldn't even say that I'm an early morning person. I'm just a person who gets after it, and like the early morning is the time where you can get after it. If I said there's nothing productive that happens after 9, anything that happens before 9 in the morning is like gold. You're crushing it. You're ahead of everybody else. It's a time where everybody else is asleep or, drinking their coffee or reading the paper or whatever. And you could be out, getting ahead, working on your goals and doing things that, at a time where nobody else can really bug you, which is what I love about it. So how do you start waking up early? All good questions. So, Jocko would say, how do you get up early? You get up early. And there's some truth to that. You got to set the alarms and all that stuff. But I'll give you some real practical advice that's going to help you out. So, number 1 is the best thing you can do is just start waking up at the same time every day, even on the weekends. And I know that sounds tough. Maybe you sleep in a little bit longer on the weekend, but try to keep it the same each day. Because here's what happens. Day number 1, you set your alarm. Let's say you set it for 5:30, okay? When that alarm goes off, put one by your bed, put one, on the other side of the room, so you have to get out of bed. And before you go to bed the night before, just say, I'm going to get up no matter what at 5:30 the next day. So you get up. Let's say, man, you didn't sleep well that night, right? Because you knew you were going to have to wake up early. Maybe you didn't fall asleep until, 1 o'clock in the morning, and now the alarm's going off at 5:50. That's only 4.5 hours of sleep. Okay. I'm not recommending you get 4.5 hours of sleep. You want to get close to 7-8 hours of sleep. Sleep is super important. But you can survive on 4 hours of sleep for a day, okay? So that's it. Even if you go to bed at 1 o'clock, alarm goes off at 5:30, you're up. You got 4.5 hours of sleep. It's going to be a bit of a rough day, but that's it, okay? Now, what are you going to do? Well, this is the perfect time to go work out. Get a gym membership. You can do it at home. I don't know how you do it at home, but if you can, great. If there's a gym that has a 6 a.m. class or something like that, even better, because then you get to know people. I recommend CrossFit. I recommend any gym that has group exercise classes that are early, where you can get in and there could be a community, and you need to be there right at whatever time they say, and you just show up, and then all you need to do is at least go through the motions, and you got something in. Even if you show up and you just kind of stand around and you don't work very hard, and they say lift 30 pounds and you lift 10 pounds, you're still doing way more than everybody else. But having something on the calendar first thing in the morning like that is really going to help you out. Okay? So get your workout in. There's another great thing about working out first thing in the morning. There's a lot of great things. One, it's the time that it's been proven that if you work out in the morning, you'll keep with your routine. But 2, it just sets your whole day up for success. I mean, if you're talking about, I woke up at 5:30 and worked out, and now and now there's birthday cake at lunch, like, you're going to be thinking about that birthday cake. Like, is this really necessary right now? Because once you work out in the morning, you're kind of like, you put the work in, and it kind of just sets up your whole day, gives you that energy. Now, day 1, you only got 4.5 hours of sleep last night, so that's going to be a crappy workout. It doesn't matter. Go through the motions, go to the class, stand in the back, whatever. Just be there. You're doing more than you were doing the day before, okay? Get showered, get to work, whatever you do. If you got a crazy schedule, that works too. Figure out, this can be adjusted any way, to make it work for you. So now, it's work. Maybe let's just pretend you got a kind of a 9-to-5 job. Whatever. Doesn't matter. You get off work whenever that is. You're going to be tired. You got up early. You only got 4.5 hours of sleep. So what do? You get home. you prepare for the next day. Get your lunch ready, get the food that is going to fuel your body. You're going to get your clothes all picked out. Now, here's another kind of pro tip. You're getting up early and you're living with somebody. You have to be 100% prepared before you go to bed. Okay? So when that alarm goes off, I put all my workout clothes in the bathroom. So when that alarm goes off, I can just sneak out, go grab my clothes in the bathroom. I don't wake up, my lovely wife, and everything's set. I could just kind of stumble into the gym almost, I don't need to do a lot of thinking in the morning. All my clothes are picked out. So you do all that stuff at night when you get home. So you cook dinner, you eat dinner, maybe you make a bigger dinner than normal, so that becomes your leftovers for the next day. Super smart. You maybe do a little bit of stretching in the evening, that'd be key. Maybe get into some sort of other activities we can talk about. But by 8 o'clock, if you only got 4.5 hours of sleep last night, by 8 o'clock you're gonna be tired, and maybe 9 o'clock, 9:30, boom, you're gonna be asleep. Okay, now you go to bed. Maybe still your body's really fighting. You still can't fall asleep that night. Maybe you're up until midnight. Alarm goes off 5:30. Okay, we got 5.5 hours of sleep. It's going to be a tough day. You might need a little, caffeine pick me up halfway through the day or whatever. But you just keep that consistency and you will start to get tired. It is the best feeling to lay down and be tired. I think that's, people have such a hard time sleeping, taking Ambien, taking all these drugs and stuff to fall asleep because we kind of sit around all day, stand up a few times during the day, go for an extra walk, do the workout. When you get home, do a project, do the dishes, turn everything into, activity. And when if you've been working all day, you get to the pillow at the end of the day, you're going to be tired. You're not going to be able to watch 4 hours of Netflix. You would fall asleep on the couch, which normally is what happens when I start watching a TV show now. So, that's kind of pro tip. One of the pro tips. So get up early, get after it during the day, get a workout in, go for an extra walk. Do those things that are going to kind of fill up some time. And then by the end of the day, you're going to be tired. And if you're going to be falling asleep at 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30, why start drinking? It's only, it's 6 o'clock. Hey, I can make it 2.5 hours till 8:30 when I'm going to be in bed. And I got to get my clothes ready for the next day. I got to do this. I got to do that. All right. So you get it. Get up early. All right, next thing is, let's find some fun stuff to do. So like I said, make a little pot of money. Right now, how much would you pay? How much would you pay to be rid of your addiction, whatever that is? I mean, I would have paid an ungodly sum to be able to get rid of it. So don't be afraid to, time is money. Use that time, make some money, use the money to get rid of this damn thing. So whether that's getting some counseling, getting a gym membership, buying a book that, instead of waiting for it at the library, doing little splurges, for yourself, going to the movies, if that's, going to be conducive. So the other thing is to try some different activities. So one thing is I highly recommend is get involved in volunteer groups, right? Volunteer groups tend to be a little bit less, drink focused, a lot more focused on doing things as a group. You meet some really incredible people. So you can always come and volunteer at the Y. But, Habitat for Humanity, things like that. Get involved in stuff with good people. Surround yourself with good people and good things will happen. Church, if you're into that type of thing. And there's dry churches. There's churches that will really help you with some of these things that are a little bit more strict around these things, So, that may be something really helpful for you to think about. is, your spiritual life, and whether that's, Buddhism, is very much against diluting ourselves with drugs and alcohol and stuff like that. There's a lot of Christian groups, like Mormons and stuff like that, with no alcohol or no gambling and things like that. Obviously, like the Islamic faith, there's no alcohol and things like that. Why? Because it dilutes us. It keeps us from finding our true self and coming closer to your own spirituality, I think. If you don't know who you are, if you're always kind of just lost in alcohol or drugs or movies or whatever it is, it's hard to really find a real spiritual center. Be contemplative. Meditation, but that's hard. It's really hard to meditate when you're trying to get sober, because all you do is kind of sit there and start thinking about it. But if you can, highly recommend it. Get involved in a sports league. Try to avoid ones like maybe softball and bowling, that kind of tend to be more like beer leagues. Sometimes volleyball. I'd say pickleball's generally a pretty dry sport. Highly recommend pickleball as a sport to get involved in. Great people in general. Lots of social interaction, and you can normally find games almost any night of the week. So that was a big way that I got sober too, was playing pickleball. I found a little video game, Clash of Clans, that, if I was like, let's say I was at an airport, which would have been prime time drinking opportunity for me, I could pull out Clash of Clans and just kind of mindlessly get through that type of situation. I could even pull that out at like a party or something, go to the bathroom, go find a little room, and, that might be the thing that gets me through a little 15-minute break, getting away from everybody, doing a couple of attacks or whatever. And, so there's all kinds of things, but it is important that you find things that are going to be helpful in this time. So, just a few tips to get you started. Let me see if I can recap them. And, there's a lot more to it, obviously, but, I would say, number one, make sure you're being safe. Number two is shrink the change, do that challenge. Hey, I'm going to do this for 30 days. I'm going to do this for a week. It kind of gives you that excuse with any friends or anything. If they start, hey, why aren't you coming out tonight or whatever? Hey, well, I'm doing the challenge. You want to join me? No, okay, that's cool, but that's what I'm doing. Doing it for my health, doing it for, because my friend is doing it, whatever, So you got an excuse. You don't need to be like, oh, I've got a problem and I can't, that's hard. That's really hard. It took me a year to be able to do that. So, waking up early, coming up with activities, getting up early, definitely highly recommend working out early, going to bed early, that way you're not sitting around at night just kind of wishing and wanting, using the money that you're saving from that to attack this, or investing in making this a thing, right? Like, if you wanted to learn a new trade, you would spend money to learn that new trade so that you can make more money later on. Investing in yourself to get sober is probably one of the best investments you can make, because you're going to be so much more capable, so much more clear, so much more happy eventually, and it might not feel that way early on. So, one thing that I haven't mentioned is support, right? Support's tough because, sometimes the people we want support from the most are going to be the ones that don't quite understand what's happening. And if you have relationships built around an addiction, sometimes those relationships don't survive, or they're at the very least gonna change you know, if you had a relationship that was based all around sex and then you took the sex out of it, you know, that would be a big problem. It's the same thing here, you know. If you have a relationship built around alcohol or Netflix or gambling or video gaming, and now you take that part out of it, that relationship is going to have to find a new way to exist. So this is where it can sometimes be really hard, because maybe, you know, it's a significant other or your best friends might not be the most supportive people for what is happening. And they might even try to like sabotage a little bit, you know what I mean? Because if you can stop doing it, then that kind of points a headlight back on them, right? So you want to be careful. You want to, you know, just honor that, kind of know that going in, that things are going to be a little bit different, you know, and, you know, you can definitely work to find ways to mold that relationship so that it stays healthy and things like that. But just kind of realize that that's a potential reality. And then, you know, so then you can find other types of support, you know. There's all kinds of anonymous groups, you know, Alcohol Anonymous, Drug Anonymous, Overeating Anonymous. I think there's sex addiction, video games. Dude, if you can think about it, there's probably a group, especially online. You know, word to the wise AA meetings. You know, I went to a few. Wasn't exactly my cup of tea or coffee, as it would be a better analogy, but definitely glad I went. Went to a few ones. It was one of the hardest things I ever did, was to walk into a meeting, you know, by myself and go in and say, you know, that I had a problem. But it was very freeing to be able to do that. And while I don't go to meetings and I didn't do the 12 steps, like, I love that I know that there's meetings there. And every once in a while, I will go to a meeting or take somebody to a meeting. You know, it's nice to know that they're there. It's really nice to know that this path is a path that many, many people are on. That is a hard path, but it's a path that's well traveled with lots of people to help you along the way. And if you want some support from people who, you know, who get it, like, that's a good place to go. Obviously, you got counseling. There's also all kinds of different types of groups. There's a behavioral smart recovery, is like uses cognitive behavioral therapy. So it's like more science-based than AA. There's a Buddhist group called Refuge Recovery. I've done some of their stuff, which is pretty cool. So, and then especially with like online, there's just so many options out there. So, you know, finding support can be huge. I'll be honest, that wasn't the thing that really did it for me. I kind of like internally ate up a lot of it and didn't talk to a lot of people about it, because I was, you know, kind of embarrassed that, you know, it was like, I was embarrassed to tell people that I had a problem, but I was even more embarrassed to tell people that I was doing something about it, you know, because when I was afraid, like, that made it very real to tell people. And so that's where that 30-day challenge is really nice, because, like, you don't have to, like, get to that step. You know, like, that stuff can come later. So don't worry about that. Don't worry about, oh, I'm never going to be able to do this again and all this stuff about the future. You know, let's say you did Sober October. I mean, and then you went right back to doing whatever you're doing. Okay. You would still have 31 days of, you know, giving your liver a break, giving your lungs a break, giving your, you know, our mind a break from, you know, TikTok or whatever the thing, you know, from porn or whatever the thing is that's kind of got their latches into you. And so, you know, don't worry that, like, oh, well, if I, you know, relapse or something, like, you didn't lose that time. Like, that time, like, is good for you, and it's a muscle that you build, you know. You made it for a week. Okay, great. Well, now you know you can do a week. Can you do 8 days? Can you do a month, you know? And then, you know, for me, like, it's also like, you know, it's like kind of like I live on this roller coaster where it's like my goal is to, like, try to even out the roller coaster and turn it into a train, you know? So instead of going up and down, it becomes more of a smooth, flat ride. And that's the great challenge of my life. And so, the faster I can realize that I'm going up this crazy hill, or, I'm like really going to crash down, if I can realize that before I get to the bottom, I can start to even it out faster, so instead of being big swings, I can start to make it little waves, and then even smaller waves, and then maybe I'll start to dip into that depression thing. I'm watching TV. I'm going to start doing this and that and the other. Okay, I can catch myself and come back up, And it's a muscle that you kind of grow as you go. So, so you can get that support, you got to find your own way. These are the things that work for me. I hope they're helpful to share, to think about. But, make it fun for yourself is basically a lot of what I'm saying, Use with the savings, use the time, I have another video. It's like, I didn't get sober to sit at home and be mad that I can't drink. I got sober so that I could go do the things that I wanted to do. I wanted to make the world better. I wanted to spend the time with my kids. I wanted to spend the time with my wife in a meaningful way. I wanted to work on my spiritual. I wanted to have a healthy body. I wanted to, to be a good citizen and things like that. And I feel like if you know what you want to do, that helps you, and go and do those things and use that time and use those money and use those resources and use all the things that you save when you're sober to be able to go do things that are going to help others. And, of course that helps you too in the long run. So, kind of an important little video today, at least to me. Don't know if anyone will ever watch it, but that's okay. These are things that I need to kind of get off my chest a little bit, things that I've been thinking about for years, and hopefully somebody does see this, and it sparks a little something in you and helps you think about something, and maybe some of these tips are helpful for you. If you have any other tips, put them in the comments. There's a lot of other stuff, of course, but those are the top things that I could think of just kind of sitting here this morning. So leave me a comment if any of this is helpful, if you have any other tips or anything like that. But I'm going to give you some tips to get started if that's something that you're thinking about. And like I said, it doesn't need to be something crazy. It could just be something that isn't serving you super well right now. And now's a great time to kind of, especially as we're coming into October, or any anytime you're seeing this, the next month, make it your challenge, make a plan, make it happen. So with all that, just want to send everybody some love on this beautiful morning. We got the sun fully up now. Let's see if we can, there it is. So it's a beautiful day here, and I hope you guys have a good one, and we'll be talking later. Bye.